I'm Kevin O'Hara for Alcohol Mastery. This is Stop Drinking Alcohol number 80. Today's videos I want to talk, I've got three different topics to talk about. First of all, I wanted to go into setting a date before you quit drinking. So if you haven't stopped drinking yet, this one might interest you. It's all about trying to focus your mind on a certain specific date, not only to give yourself that date and to know when you're going to stop and the date you're going to stop, but also to be able to focus your mind on the things that you've got to do to prepare yourself and to prepare the other people around you. The second thing I want to talk about is sleeping. Now, I know I've done a couple of videos on this, and you can find those over on the website, but I thought I'd do another video just on the transition on how to sort of get your head around abnormal sleeping that you were having while you were drinking towards the normal sleeping that you will be having once you transition across and you adjust yourself. So I'll talk a bit more about that in the video. And finally for today, I wanted to talk about the benefit of quitting drinking, that your overall life will improve. Now, I'm not talking about just the day-to-day improvements that you're going to see in your body and in your life and in your finances and in your relationships and all that kind of stuff. I'm talking about that as well, but also from the aspect of that you're into the future. People sort of don't in general look at, once they get to a certain stage in their lives, that they have to retire, that they have to put their own life on the back burner, so to speak, and that they're not worth as much as they used to be. And I don't think that's a right way to think at all. There's several people, there's thousands of people throughout history that have had a purpose in life all throughout, right up until the day that they left this planet. And that's sort of what I wanted to talk about today, was to sort of address some of those things. So as normal, I'm going to split this video up into the three separate videos. So each question, the sleeping video and the overall life improvement video, and the first one, which I can't remember what it was. It was setting a time. So I'm going to set those up and put those as three separate videos. You can find the links down below. If you're watching this on YouTube, there are going to be the links to the website. If you're watching this on the website, obviously there'll be internal links, so you'll be able to just go to the page. So without further ado, let's go and take a walk. So the first thing I wanted to talk about today was before you actually quit, picking a date, picking a day into the future when you're gonna step across the line. The first thing I'd say to you, if you haven't given it a lot of thought and you haven't gone through a lot of thinking about this, then don't choose tomorrow. Don't choose today. Don't all of a sudden go, well, that's it. I've got a really bad hangover now and I'm not having any more. And the reason for this is because you need to prepare yourself if you're going to last into the long run. Can you do it without making any preparation? I'm not saying you can't, but I think you have more of a success if you can sit down and plan things out and just get things right in your head. I think if you can start with the right frame of mind, then you'll go a lot further. Now, I'm not talking about making some elaborate plan where you have everything mapped out and you know exactly what you're going to do when you meet this person or that person, or what you're going to say in this situation or that situation. But you need to know sort of generally, what setting a date does is it just puts something in stone. It gives things a certain perspective, and it allows you to put your affairs in order, if you like. It allows you to sort of tell the people who you need to tell. It means you can sort of get your environment ready. You can do all those things that are essential to your success. And when you're choosing your date, don't leave it too long. Don't leave a big gap. Say, most people choose between 14 days and a month. Don't leave it any more than a month. The reason for this is because the longer you leave it, the more time you have to think about both the negative and about the positive and the negative, I should say, aspects of this. And if you leave it a long time, then you've got a lot of time to talk yourself out of it. Most people go into this because there's a driving factor behind it. There's something that's happened health-wise, in the environment around you, at home, in your work, which has really sort of made you think about this and seriously consider it. And if you wait a long time, then the impetus behind that conflict that's been caused will start to wane. So the longer you leave the gap between the conflict and the time that you quit, the more likely it is that you will talk yourself out of it. Another thing that you shouldn't do is choose a day with built-in problems. So any day where you would normally be celebrating, for instance, don't choose that as a day, or if that day is going to occur within a few days of you actually quitting drinking, then either go a week after or a week before. I'm talking about birthdays, celebrations of any kind. You need to give yourself as much of a head start as possible. This is about lasting into the long run, but those first few weeks are essential in giving you that impetus. So the more you can do at the beginning to help yourself, the better. There are days where there's sort of significance in the day, and you can certainly choose those. I mean, New Year's Day was one that I gave up. It was actually the 2nd of January that I quit. It's an easy day to remember, but don't choose the 2nd of January if you're in August. Only do that if you're close enough to it. My decision was made over Christmas when my son was over, so it was sort of ideal for me. Other times that I've heard of people quitting are during the equinoxes for some reason, significant days, or any other significant day where you wouldn't normally be celebrating with alcohol anyway. Other things to consider include if you're going to make a call to your doctor. If you're going to make an appointment to go see your doctor, then do that first. If you're a woman, I think it goes without saying not to do this while you've got PMS. Do this when you're going to be at your best. Don't do it sort of when you're going to be up in the air and you're going to be up in the air. So one of the things to do is get a calendar, a big calendar with the day on it, and get a big red marker and circle the date with your red marker. Just stick it up where you can see it. You can see it every day, and you're getting closer and closer to it. Like I say, don't leave it too long. I wouldn't leave it any more than a couple of weeks, because it gives you enough time to plan, gives you enough time to get yourself ready, but not enough time to talk yourself out of it. So the next thing I wanted to talk about today is how long after I've quit alcohol before I actually can go to sleep properly. Now, I've spoke about this before in a couple of videos, and for me, I knew I was gonna I knew I was gonna have problems sleeping, because I'd already gone through sort of a quitting, a long-term quit, about 5 years before, and for the first month, it was just that I had a bad time getting to sleep, on and off. So it was that was in my head. So if I think now that like most other elements of quitting drinking, I think that sleeping and having problems with sleeping has a lot to do with what's going on in your head. And the reason for this is I'll explain a bit. When I stopped drinking this time, I was I went into bed knackered, tried to go to sleep, read a bit of my book, and sort of got tired. And then after a little while, I managed to sort of nod off, but I'd wake up straight away, wide awake again. And this sort of process would go on 10, 15 times, and eventually I'd sort of drop off for a bit and wake up. And it took me a while before I was able to go to sleep and stay asleep, so roughly about a month before I was able to do it. And that's on a decreasing scale, so by the end of the month, roughly speaking, I was over the worst of it, and I was able to get into bed at night. As soon as I sort of read for a little bit, I'd go to sleep, and I'd stay asleep until the morning. But here's the thing: all the years that I drank, I didn't drink all the time. I was a constant drinker in that I drank sort of. There wasn't a week that went by most of the time when I didn't drink. And some of the times I would stop drinking for a day or 2 days or 3 days, and on those days that I did stop drinking, I'd have problems getting to sleep, but I would always sleep. It would take me a little bit longer to go to sleep. Now, what's the difference between a day when you're just not drinking? You've decided you're not going to drink today, or for 2 days or 3 days or whatever, and for whatever reason, and a day when you've just decided you're going to quit drinking for good. I mean, it's all in your head. There shouldn't be any big difference between the two things. It should be exactly the same thing. You're not drinking alcohol on the same night. You're not drinking alcohol whether you're not drinking alcohol for 2 days or whether you're not drinking alcohol for the rest of your life. You understand? So, that proves to me that a lot of this stuff is in your head. Think about this from your own perspective. Most people have gone through days when they just didn't drink. Even hardened alcoholics, even very heavy drinkers who need to be hospitalized, can go without drink. I mean, it's one of those things that you'll find with some organizations that are helping you to quit, and they'll say, well, alcoholism is a disease. It's a disease that where the person has no control over their alcohol consumption at all. And yet one of the first things that they'll say to you when you go into the hospital is that in order to stay in the hospital, that you have to stop drinking. So you have to have control over your drinking in order to stay there. But if you have a disease called alcoholism, which part of the disease is that you can't control your drinking, how can you all of a sudden control it? It just doesn't make sense. So I really think that it's when you do decide to quit for forever, you've got that playing on your mind, you've got that in your mind in the beginning that says, well, yeah, and that's it. It's a big psychological barrier then to get over. It's not just a day or 2 days, it's the rest of your life. And I've talked about this as well before, we don't live our lives like that, so there's no point in thinking like that. It's a moment by moment thing, and take it moment by moment, take it one night at a time. So what can you do to change? There's not much that you can do in your head. This is a process. It's a process of changing your entire lifestyle. A lot of your lifestyle has got to change in order for you to get rid of the alcohol from your system. I mean, if you imagine that alcohol is like the hub of a wheel, and all of a sudden you take the hub out and you've got the spokes left, and you've just compromised the whole rim. The whole thing is all wobbly now, and you've got to put the hub back in, or a different hub. It's like taking a broken cog out of the machine. Once the cog's gone, the machine's not going to work. And it's a similar thing. You've got to have that cog in there, but it's just got to be replaced by something else. And there's plenty of books out there on getting to sleep. And regardless of whether you're not sleeping because you're not drinking anymore, or you're not sleeping because you're worried, it is the same processes. It is. You need to relax yourself. You need to get yourself into a frame of mind to go to sleep. And there's plenty of different techniques. And this is something that I'll do a lot more work on in the future, because it really is one of the biggest problems that people have when they're quitting. So finally today, I wanted to talk about another benefit of quitting drinking, and that's overall life improvement. So, will your life actually improve once you've stopped drinking? And basically, it depends what you do with all that time and energy that you're going to have on your hands once you are not poisoning yourself anymore. If you spend your time looking backwards and looking at what you're missing and pining after this best friend in your life, this drug that used to be your best friend and now is gone, and you're going through this grieving process, then it's going to be very difficult for you to make the most out of your life. On the other hand, if you can turn your back on the alcohol, think about it as the filthy bastard that it is, the thing that has robbed you of much of your life in the past and was threatening to rob you of a lot more of your life and to eventually take your life. If you can turn your back on that and face forward into whatever the future holds to you, and take advantage of the time on your hands, the extra money on your hands, the extra energy in your hands, the extra pride you'll have in yourself, the extra self-confidence that you'll have in yourself, the extra self-control that you will have. If you can take advantage of the way that other people are treating you with a lot more respect, then you can really do something with your life. I think your life can improve drastically. Imagine all those hours and hours and weeks and months that you spent drinking or overcoming the hangovers, overcoming the recovery, going through the recovery process. Imagine if you had all that time on your hands to do something brilliant with, and all the money that you were spending on alcohol to spend on something a lot better. Imagine what you could do. I find it unbelievable. If you'd have said to me 2 years ago, if you'd have asked me 2 years ago exactly what I would have been doing in 2 years' time, the last thing I would have said to you would have been sitting down and starting writing my third book. That would have been the last thing. And I just can't believe how much my life has improved just because I have eliminated alcohol from my life altogether. And anybody's life will improve. There's no doubt in my mind about this. People think, well, what am I going to do with this, and how am I going to deal with my friends? How am I going to enjoy myself? Most of the time, we just have forgotten how to enjoy ourselves. If enjoying ourselves means getting out of our face all the time and never remembering, that's not really enjoying yourself. And fine, well, it's not. Everyone knows that. But it's, for a lot of us, it's the only thing that we know. I drank from when I was in my teens, and it was literally the only way I knew how to socialise and, to mix with other people. It was the only way. When somebody said to me, "Oh, let's go out and let's party, have some fun," immediately it was the first thing that popped up into my mind was alcohol. If I went into a party, I wouldn't be looking for the host to go, "Oh yeah, thanks for inviting me." I'd be looking to see how much alcohol there was. Now it's like, I'm learning. I'm still learning. But I'm having so much more fun. I've gone through the same questions and answer session a few times in my head, and sometimes you can't help it. If you're feeling a bit down, if I'm feeling a bit down, it's easy to sort of sink back and think, Jesus, 30 years, where could I have been now? What kind of a person could I have been now if I never touched a drop of alcohol in my life? There's really no point in it. It's all the coulda, woulda, shouldas. There's only now, there's only this moment, and there's only making plans for tomorrow. You can't do anything about the past. You can change how you view the past. You can change how you think about the past. And, I've done that in spades. Look back and just thought, yeah, what the hell, product of my environment, product of the people around me, and, I'm learning. I'm out of it now. I've spoke about this before, that I've lost a lot of weight that I gained while I was drinking and eating crap, and I think my arthritis is sort of, if not gone, it's I haven't seen sight nor sound of it for a long time, so hopefully that's gone. That's in the distant past. One of the biggest things I notice is my brain. I'm able to do more things than I could. I'm able to think a lot clearer than I was thinking, and that's partly because I'm now. My brain has got only the chemicals in there that are supposed to be in there. There's a very fine balance of chemicals. I don't understand the brain at all. I understand that it relies on chemical balances, and there's electrical impulses and all that kind of stuff. And all of this kind of stuff is very, this is your brain, for God's sake. Your brain is surrounded by this thing called a blood-brain barrier, and it's there to protect your brain from invading parasites, so diseases and viruses and that kind of stuff, and shit that's in your body that shouldn't really be going into your brain. And alcohol is one of the few things that can penetrate this and get into your brain, and can actually touch your brain. When you think alcohol is there for, alcohol is used as a cleaner, it's used as a solvent, it's used as a disinfectant, as an antiseptic, and there's this thing going into your brain all the time. Regardless of the actual physical damage that's doing to your brain, imagine how that is interfering with just your thought processes. This is something that I realised, I was talking last week about memories and stuff and losing all the memories. It's no wonder you can't remember anything. It's no wonder you can't keep memories in your brain. It's just, it's ridiculous. When this thing that is used as a cleaner is going into your brain, just cleans your mind of all your thoughts, good and bad. You're really talking about the control center of everything that you do, everything that you think, every movement that you make, all happens up here first. So, it's a bit like pouring paraffin on your computer. Just doesn't make any sense. It takes a while for your brain to become unpickled, so to speak. But it does happen. It's not going to happen overnight. The actual alcohol comes out of your system very fast, but it does take time for you to adjust. But once you have adjusted, there is only really improvement there. You will never improve while you're drinking alcohol, but you will certainly improve once you stop drinking alcohol. So let me know if you have any questions, any comments. Sign up to the newsletter over on the website. As I said last week, there's you can, if anyone's bought the book already, if they wouldn't mind going over and leaving a quick review on Amazon, whether it's amazon.com or .uk, I'd really appreciate it. It's the the site is kept afloat now through sales of the book. So the comment system on Amazon, the more comments, the more people will be able to see the book and hopefully buy. So if you've left a comment, if you've left a review, then thanks very much for that. And if you've bought the book, I really, really appreciate it. It's one of the things that us English and Irish don't really like doing, is asking for things. But if you wouldn't mind doing that, I would be eternally grateful. So until next time, I'm Kevin O'Hara for Alcohol Mastery. Onwards and upwards.